Hare Krishna. So welcome to today's class. The glories of Lord Chaitanya and Navadvip and Jagannath Puri Dhams. So today we're talking about Jagannath Puri, a little bit about the history of Jagannath Puri, how it came to be a holy place, how Lord Jagannath came to be in his form of Jagannath, and how he came to be in Puri, in the temple there. We'll hear that story. And then also we'll look at reasons why they have this strict rule that foreigners can't enter the temple of Lord Jagannath. So for some devotees, some of us, it can be disappointing, that we travel all the way there, the other side of the world, and there's this big, beautiful temple. And, we go up to the gate and there's a big sign there that says, I think it says, strictly Hindus only, or non-Hindus not allowed. And then we can even say, well, come on, we're Hindus, we're Vaishnavas, been chanting Hare Krishna for how many years? But the guard's just going to look at you and go, sorry, you're not coming in. So then how to deal with that, like how to accept that, and not just, accept it, but actually be satisfied and be happy with the situation in Krishna consciousness. So we'll talk about that. All right. So Jagannath Puri. Jagannath Puri is one of the famous dhams of the ancient Char dhams. Char means four. So these Char dhams, the four dhams, are in the north, south, east, and west. So in the north, it's Badrinath, or Badrik Ashram, it's called in Bhagavatam. In the west, it's Dwarka, which is where Krishna, lived in Dwarka. That is the family, is the Yadu dynasty. And then there's Rameshwaram in the south, in South India. It's a place of Lord Ramachandra, or where Lord Ramachandra worshipped. And then Jagannath Puri in the east. So it's said that Badrinath is connected with Satya Yuga because there the Lord engages in deep meditation in the form of Narayan. And then Rameshwaram is connected with Lord Ramachandra in Treta Yuga, which is when he appeared. Dwarka is connected with Dwapara Yuga. And then Puri, because Krishna appeared in Dwapara Yuga. God, I'm getting so tongue-tied. Krishna appeared in Dwarpa Yuga, and he stayed in Dwarka. Those two are too similar to say together. And then Jagannath Puri is the place for Kali Yuga. It's a place of pilgrimage that's for Kali Yuga, and it's where the Lord takes his meals. That's what it says. So now it's Kali Yuga, and we're going to Jagannath Puri. So it's the place to be in Kali Yuga, or at least one of the important places to be in Kali Yuga. And because it's a place where the Lord is famous for eating, then one of the main ways that Lord Jagannath bestows blessings to devotees in Jagannath Puri is through Mahaprasadam. So he's offered something like 56 offerings a day. And so it's just constantly, the fires in the kitchen in the Jagannath temple never go out. It's just constantly cooking, all day long cooking. So through taking Mahaprasadam and also chanting the holy names, because it's the Yuga Dharma for Kali Yuga. So Jagannath Puri is a very ancient, holy place, and it's also its potency increases in Kali Yuga, whereas the potency of other holy places decreases as time goes by. But the potency of Jagannath Puri increases, and also the potency of Navadvip Dham increases. So those are the two places that we're going in this part of our sacred pilgrimage. So Jagannath Puri is a seaside town. It's right on the beach. Beautiful beach there, beautiful ocean there, big waves. It's a really nice place. And it's not like a huge city. It's really more like a town. You can basically, in one day, you can walk and see most of the main holy places. It's even more of a small town than, Yeah, it doesn't feel like a city, although it's called Puri, which means city. It doesn't feel like a city. It really feels like a town. And the ocean is very significant in Puri because Jagannatha and Baladeva and Subhadra were carved from a log which came floating in from the sea. And you're going to hear about that story. Also, Lord Chaitanya used to bathe every day in the sea at Puri. And it's said in the Skanda Purana that if one takes bath in the ocean at Puri, then that person will never have to take birth again. So, a good excuse to go to the beach and swim in the sea at Puri. Another name for Jagannath Puri is Nilachala, or it's also called Niladri. They both mean the same thing. Nila means blue, and Achal and Adri both mean hill. So it means the blue hill. So the temple is situated on, it doesn't really seem like a hill, maybe in, I don't know. I never noticed a hill being there, but that's what they call it. It's also called Purushottam Kshetra, or the holy field. Kshetra means the field. The holy field of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Another name is also Shankha Kshetra. Shankha means conch, because it's shaped like a conch shell. If you take like a bird's eye view of the geographical area of Jagannath Puri, it looks vaguely like a conch shell, where the tip of the conch is like going into the sea. And because it's on the sea, then it just makes sense that, like, you know, the waves bring the shells up onto the beach. So it's like a conch shell on the beach. It's kind of a nice imagery. So yeah, in the same way that Navadvip Dham is shaped like a lotus flower with many petals, with the 9 petals or the 8 petals around the central whorl of Antardvip, like we saw. So Puri is the conch. And the temple of Lord Jagannath is situated in the spiral of the conch shell. And it's said that when Dwarka was submerged by the water of the ocean after Krishna disappeared, the opulence of Dwarka was manifest in Jagannath Puri, where Krishna continues to reside and bless his devotees. So the opulence of Dwarka, when Krishna left, Dwarka got flooded, all got destroyed, but the transcendental opulence, the spiritual, eternal opulences of Krishna, which were manifest in Dwarka, they became manifest in Jagannath Puri. Okay, so then how did Lord Jagannath come to be manifest in Puri, along with his brother Baladev and sister Subhadra, in those uncommon forms that we see in the temple? So the story of Lord Jagannath is told in the Puranas, in the Skanda Purana and the Brahma Purana and others, as follows. So during Satya Yuga, there was a deity of Krishna named Nila Madhava. That deity was there on a small shrine in a dense forest on the hill of Nilachala, which is in Orissa, which is now Jagannath Puri. So the deity was just there in the forest, and no human being knew that the deity even existed. But every day early in the morning, before sunrise, during the Brahma Muhurta, the demigods would come down from the heavenly planets and worship Nila Madhava with their celestial paraphernalia that they would bring with them. And they would do the worship, and then they would leave. So one day, this tribal man named Vishvavasu, he was actually the chief of the Sabara tribe. He was wandering through the forest, and he discovered the deity. And then because he was a devotee, even though he was a tribal person, but he was very devoted to the Lord, he was able to observe the demigods doing their puja. So that, I mean, just imagine, you see the Lord, and then you're fortunate to see the demigods, you know, coming and worshiping the Lord. So that was a very moving experience for him, and something that, you know, he wanted to see every day. So he started going there every night and hiding in the bushes, observing the demigods doing their puja. And then after the demigods would leave, then he would go and he would collect, you know, leaves and flowers and fruits from the forest and do his own simple worship of the deity with those ingredients. And sometimes, you know, he would, the Mahaprasadam, the Maha flowers and garland and items that the demigods would worship, they left there. Obviously, they offered and they left. So sometimes he would get that Mahaprasadam offered by the demigods, and something very special. So he had this private, it was almost like his private deity. So he became very attached to the deity, became very possessive of that deity. Like, this is my deity, this is my special Krishna, only I know about him. So he developed a lot of loving attachment for that deity and the, possessive mood. So meanwhile, there's a very saintly king living in the city of Avantipur named Indradumna. So this king Indradumna, he was a great devotee. And one night he had a dream in which this deity of Nilamadava appeared to him. And I can't remember if the deity spoke to him or anything, but he had a very wonderful darshan in his dream of the deity. And he was so attracted by Nilamadava's beauty and just overwhelmed by the vision of the deity that the next morning he called his best Brahmin priest, Vidyapati, and he said, I saw this deity, you have to find him. His name is Nilamadava, and he described basically what the deity looked like. He said, whatever you do, just find this deity. I trust you. You're my best Brahmin. You're my best minister. You're very intelligent, and you're enlightened. Please just pray that this deity reveals himself to you somehow or other, wherever he is. So Vidyapati, he took up the mission, and he went out and he just started scouring the countryside, asking everyone he met, anyone who might know anything about the deity. I'm going to mute you, Penny, because you're making a little noise there. Asking everybody that he met, like, I'm looking for this deity. Do you have any leads? Do you have any ideas where he may be? And he actually went traveling around for years. There was a very long time looking for this deity because no one knew the deity. Only this one person, the demigods, and then one human being, Vishvavasu, knew where the deity was. And it was in the middle of the forest. It wasn't anywhere where anybody ever went. So after years of searching, he ended up in Orissa, in some remote village, and he needed a place to stay for the night. So that was kind of the custom that, Brahmins would travel. They would go to someone's house and just, say, I'm a traveling Brahmin. Can you put me up for the night? And the culture was that people would be happy to receive a Brahmin and offer them whatever he needed. So the house that he happened to knock on the door of was the house of Vishvavasu. And of course, they were honored to receive such a pure Brahmin who was a minister of the king of Avanti. So they invited him to stay. So Vishvavasu, he had a daughter who was beautiful and intelligent and highly qualified. And Vidyapati, he was quite taken by this young woman. Her name was Lalita. And during his stay there, he fell in love with her, and he ended up marrying her. So, in one sense, it looks like he kind of gave up on the search. But in another sense, Krishna had his own plan, his own way of revealing himself. So, Vidyapati didn't have a clue about anything. Now, he was just, he needed a place to stay, and he fell in love with Lalita, and he got married. But then while he was staying in the house, so he's living there in the house with the family, and he noticed that Vishvavasu would leave every night. He would go out late every night, and he would be absent all night, and he would come back in the morning just after sunrise, just glowing. He would be radiant, and he would be emanating this celestial fragrance, like a fragrance that Vidyapati had never, smelled before, thinking, what, where does he go, and what does he do, and why does he smell so nice, and why is he so happy and effulgent when he comes back? So Vidyapati eventually inquired from his wife Lalita, like, where does your father go? What is going on here? And Lalita revealed to him that her father was going to worship the beautiful Lord Nilamadava. So when Vidyapati heard the name Nilamadava, he was like, he was elated, he was delighted, and he was like, finally, my mission to find Nilamadava is going to be fulfilled. So he was really overjoyed. And So he begged Vishvavasu, please take me to the forest to see Nilamadeva. I really want to see this deity. I'm a devotee. I'm a Brahmin, like I'm your son-in-law. Please, take me. But Vishvavasu was like, no way. Like, I'm not taking any, because he was so attached to the deity. He was being protective, he thought, this Brahman's going to go, then he's going to want to worship him. He's going to tell me that I'm not qualified to worship him because I'm just a tribal, I'm not a Brahmin, and then I'm not going to be able to worship him anymore. And maybe he's going to want to take the deity and put him in a big temple, and I won't even be allowed to enter the temple. And so he was in a lot of anxiety, and he was just like, no, there's just no way that any of that is going to happen. I'm going to worship this Nilamadeva till my last day and forget it. So, yeah, Vidyapati was like, oh no, so close, but yet so far, So the days went by, and then every day, basically, he was just praying and praying to Krishna, please let me go and see you in your Nilamadeva form. And then finally, Lalita, very sweetly, she was serving her father and trying to get him to soften up and, doing everything she could to make her father favorably inclined towards both of them. And then she very sweetly begged her father, saying, just one time, just take him and let him see. So finally, Vishvavasu said, okay, I'll take him, but on one condition, he has to go blindfolded so that he can't see the way. And then when he gets there, he can take off the blindfold, see the deity, put the blindfold back on, and walk back, and he won't be able to go again. He won't know the way. So Vishvavasu said, that's the only way that you're going to see the deity. If you, accept or whatever, that's it. So Vidyapati said, yes, I accept. Please take me. But then before he left, Lalita gave him a handful of mustard seeds, and with the plan that he go dropping. Every few steps, he drops a mustard seed, and later those plants, the seeds are going to sprout, and then the trail to the place is going to be clear. So that's what he did. He went blindfolded, dropping mustard seeds. When they reached the spot, he took off his blindfold, and he saw this beautiful form of Nilamadeva. So he'd never seen such a beautiful deity before. So he was just sitting there like spellbound with the darshan. In the meantime, Vishvavasu goes off to the forest, collects his fruits and flowers for the worship, and Vidyapati's just, taking it all in. Then Vishvavasu comes back, and just when he's about to offer his fruits and flowers, he hears a voice. They both hear this deep, resonant voice of Nilamadeva saying, dear Vishvavasu, for a long time, I've accepted your forest fruits and flowers, your simple worship with great pleasure. But now I wish to enjoy the regal opulence that King Indradumna will give me. So when Vishvavasu heard that, he was just totally stunned with grief, basically, because he knew this was his worst fear. This was like exactly what he feared would happen. And now the deity himself, Krishna himself, is saying that I want Vidyapati to take me away and take me to Mars Indradumna and worship me like that. So Vishvavasu wasn't ready to let go of his worshipable Lord, even if it was the Lord's desire. And so he basically kept Vidyapati captive in his house for days on end. He wouldn't let him leave. He didn't want the king to know about it. Fortunately, they didn't have, phones and internet and all that in those days. So the only way that Indradumna could come to know about it was if Vidyapati went and told him. So he was just keeping him like a prisoner there, like you're not going anywhere. But then finally he relented. And, again, like Lalita begged him, and finally he let him go. So Vidyapati very happily, he went as fast as he could back to Avanti. He told the king, and the king immediately, got his chariot, his royal chariot yoked, and he just sped with his retinue, with the queen and a few others to go and basically get Nilamadeva. So they got there. The mustard seeds had sprouted in the meantime, and it was a clear path there. So they arrived at the shrine and everybody was all excited. After years of searching, finally he was going to get this lower form of the Lord that he saw in his dream that he'd been hankering for all this time. And they get there and the altar is empty. There's no deity there. Just the shrine is there. There's some remnants of puja items, but the deity is gone. So King Indradumna is like really frustrated. And first he turns to Vidyapati, the Brahmin, and he's like, I can't believe you brought me all the way here for nothing. And he was really angry. He's blaming Vidyapati for being basically incompetent and useless. And Vidyapati said, no, honestly, the deity was here. Like, look, you can see the place where he was standing, and I saw him with my own eyes. And so then the king turns to Vishvavasu and he says, then this tribal Sabara must have stolen him and hidden him away so that he could keep him for himself. So he orders his soldiers capture this tribal and just torture him until he tells us where the deity is. But then they all hear the same voice, that deep resonant voice from the sky of Nilamadeva saying, stop, dear king, do not give trouble to my devotees. Because of your aggression towards the Vaishnavas, you will never be able to see me as Nilamadeva. You can just imagine like the king's jaws just like, oh no, I've really messed up here now. So the voice continues, however, if you build a temple at Nilachal, I will come to you in my wooden form as Daru Brahman. So Daru means wood, and Brahman means like spiritual, means like the Lord. So the Lord in the form of wood. And King Indradumna has no clue what that means. And he's very embarrassed for becoming angry and for shouting, but he's still determined. So, he stays there in Nilachala, Jagannath Puri. It's not Jagannath Puri yet because there's no Jagannath there yet, but he stays there. And he gets a construction crew. They build a huge stone temple with a, solid foundation, a huge tower rising 180 feet above the ground. And he puts a chakra there, and he covers the dome of the temple in gold. The entire roof is covered with gold. And then when the temple is ready, then he performs, he's advised by some Brahmins to perform 1,000 Ashvamedha yajna in front of the temple for the satisfaction of the Lord. So he does that. And then the night before the last part of the yajna, Nilamadeva again appears to King Indradumna in his dream and tells him that I'm going to come very soon, and that you should go to the ocean and look for a special log. You're going to see a special log floating in the ocean. So the next day, when the sacrifice, the Ashvamedha sacrifice is totally complete, then King Indradumna, along with the queen, they go down to the ocean and they take their ceremonial bath in the sea. And at that time, while they're in the water bathing, just when they're completing the bath, this enormous log comes. And it's not like a usual log. It's marked with the 4 symbols of Vishnu. There's the insignia of the conch, the lotus, the club, and the disc, Sudarshana disc. And it's floating towards the land. And it just, right in front of them, it just washes ashore. So then King Indradumna is like, oh my God, this is the log. This is what Nilamadeva in my dream spoke about. So then he calls all of his men to carry the log, but nobody can move it. Like hundreds of men are pulling the log with all their strength. They can't budge it. Then they bring in elephants. They tie the elephants onto it. The elephants are pulling with all their might. Even they can't move the log. Everything fails. And then the king is like, what is going on? This is obviously the log. The Lord told me to get this log. He told me what to do with it. Why is he not letting me do anything? And then he remembers the offense that he made when he became angry and he very harshly shouted at Vishvavasu and Vidyapati for cheating him, or accusing them of cheating him when they didn't actually cheat him at all. And then he understood that by this offense to the Vaishnavas, his service was blocked. So then he called for both of them, and he very sincerely apologized, and he invited them very honorably to join in the effort of getting this log to the palace. And then as soon as Vishvavasu and Vidyapati arrived there, then the log was easily moved and they carried it off to the palace. So next problem is the king had to find an artist to carve the deity. So the best sculptors in the land were called to the palace, but it was very mysterious because as soon as these sculptors got out their hammers and chisels and started to try to chip away at the log, their tools would just break, every single one of them. First hit, the chisel would break, but the hammer would break. Everything was just like fall to pieces. And not one of them could even make a little scratch in the wood. So Indradyumna was really like in difficulty. And his desire to see and to worship Nilamadeva was growing more and more. So we can see like this, like the Lord is very expert in, fanning the desire of the devotee, making it, increasing the desire to see the Lord. Finally, this stranger comes to the palace. No one knows who this person is or where he came from, but he comes along and he says that my name is Ananta Maharana, and I'm a sculptor, and I can help you. So, but he says on one condition, that no one can disturb me while I'm doing my work. So I will work behind closed doors, and no one can enter until I'm finished. If someone does open the door while I'm working, then I'm going to leave immediately, and that's it. I'm not going to, whatever is done, whatever it is, and no more work will be done on the deities. So, yeah, King Indradyumna was so desperate at this point that he couldn't say no. So he just said, okay, whatever, I agree to whatever conditions you set, just please, just please carve the deity. So the sculptor locked himself into a room, and he's doing his work there. And but actually it's described, I've heard different versions, but the version that I'm going to say here is that what I saw in an authoritative source is that King Indradyumna was outside the door and he's listening, but he can't hear anything. There's no sound. Like usually someone's sculpting, you hear the sound of the hammer and the tools and you hear some sound, but there was nothing. It was just dead silence. So the king was like having so many doubts, like, what is he doing in there? Did he just go in there and go to sleep, or what's going on? And he was like full of anxiety. And then he was thinking that this sculptor is not doing a thing. And then he just opened the door. It was, the 21st day after it started, he just couldn't restrain himself anymore. And he opened the door. And immediately that artist, who it's said to be is Vishvakarma, who's the architect and the craftsman of the heavenly planets. He's a heavenly being, like a celestial being. He just saw the king and he disappeared. And that was it. So the three so-called unfinished forms were what we have now, Lord Jagannatha, Baladev, and Subhadra. So it looks like, they just have like stumps for arms. They don't have hands. They don't have like, very refined facial features. They just have kind of like block faces and, whatever. So it looks like they're unfinished, but, and the king is really like, oh no, now that's it. It'll never be finished. And he realizes he has no one to blame for himself. So he's really upset with himself. But then, again, in a dream, the Lord appears to him and says, in the same form, the smiling form of Jagannatha, Baladev, and Subhadra, and says, don't worry, this is perfect. Actually, these are my eternal forms, and you can worship me in these forms. So then Jagannath blessed the king, and then he asked, he wanted King Indradyumna to ask for a benediction. And Indradyumna asked for this interesting benediction that he said, may I die without any male heir to continue my dynasty, because I don't want anyone to claim the temple as their personal property. I want to make sure that it's not like, what we call a seminal line of ownership or whatever of the temple, but that it's actually like a qualified person. It's a devotee of the Lord who's managing the temple. So, and this particular blessing is considered to have been carried on for some centuries. Okay, so that brings us to this issue of why is it that only, Hindus are allowed, or not even only Hindus, but Indian Hindus? Why is it that only, Indian Hindus are allowed? Because after all, Jagannath, the name Jagannath means the Lord of the universe. So if he's actually the Lord of the universe, then why shouldn't anyone from anywhere in the universe be able to go see their Lord? Why is it that only Indians can go into this original temple of Jagannath? And, especially for those of us who, we're not just going there like tourists, that we've dedicated our lives to Krishna. We worship Jagannath in our temples, we hold so many Ratha Yatras, and it's just like, wait a minute, isn't Krishna the controller here? Why does he allow the management to maintain this, what seems like a senseless law or policy? So and also Jagannath is known as Patita Pavana, the savior of the most fallen. So even if they consider us fallen, malechas or yavanas or whatever they want to call us, but if the Lord is the savior of the fallen, then why would he not want to save us, want to see us and save us through his merciful darshan? So the tradition just seems very unreasonable, it seems unfair, and it just seems downright racist. And since we're not the body, it just goes against everything, right? that we hear in Bhagavad Gita and that we know about the merciful Lord. So whenever something about the Lord's relationship with his devotees doesn't make sense, that means we need to look deeper. We need to really ask ourselves, what is the backstory here? What is the internal reason? What is the transcendental purpose behind this situation? So there are a few reasons that I'm going to cover. And one, and this is more of an external reason, is because the Jagannath temple has a long history of being attacked by foreign rulers. So it was actually attacked and looted by foreign invaders 17 times. And each time they just completely defiled the temple in various ways. Of course, every time it was different, but sometimes just charging in with their shoes on and spitting or urinating, or sometimes they went in with weapons and they were, hurting people and causing bloodshed and smashing things and, stealing temple valuables. And so, of course, each time after each one of these invasions, then the temple needed to be totally repaired. Everything was contaminated, by whatever, if people were hurt and bleeding, then all these things are contaminating. So the whole temple had to be cleared out and scrubbed from floor to ceiling. All the paraphernalia had to be thrown away and replaced, because after it had been contaminated, it can't be used to worship the Lord anymore. And so this just kept happening for a period of over 350 years, from 1340 to 1699. There were all these attacks. And sometimes it was people who were dressed as Vaishnavas, who were dressed as Hindus, that they would enter the temple and then turn out to be, like wolves in sheep's clothing kind of thing. So then they just got to not trust any foreign. They just set this policy, hard policy, that no foreigners. So yeah, it's just enough is enough. We need to screen people who enter. And so, yeah, so one way of understanding is it that it's just like it's just like a PTSD, it's like a post-traumatic response to all these attacks. And so it resulted in a policy that continues up till today. And since they made the rule, the temple hasn't been attacked. So one way we can look at it ourselves is that we can consider that by respecting this policy, we're actually keeping Lord Jagannath safe from any foreigners who might try to dress up as Vaishnavas and cause pain to the Lord and his devotees in these ways. So, because if we insist that we can go in, then other people might enter who might, cause some havoc, cause difficulty for the Lord and the devotees. So that's more of an external reason. Another thing we can meditate on, as we stand outside the temple gate while everybody else is going in and we're stuck outside like outcasts, is that we're actually in very good company. So I read an article by Madhavananda Prabhu, and I'll share this article on the groups, that Madhavananda Prabhu narrates different pastimes in which great personalities, including the demigoddess Charchika, Lakshmi Devi, the goddess of fortune, who's the eternal consort of Lord Vishnu, and even Lord Jagannath himself at different times were denied entry into the Jagannath temple. So I won't tell all the stories now, but I'll just share the link to that article, or I'll copy and somehow I'll share that article with you and you'll be able to read those pastimes. It's very sweet pastimes of the Lord. So you'll see that, even the Lord himself was locked out of the temple at one point. What to speak of us. And then, of course, we know, from Chaitanya Charitamrita that some of the Lord's most intimate, most entrusted and exalted associates, like Haridas Thakur, like Rupa and Sanatana Goswamis, were also not allowed to enter the temple at all. Like Haridas Thakur just wouldn't even go near it. Sanatana Goswami also wouldn't go near the temple. He would walk on the beach. He wouldn't even walk near the temple. So then the question remains, why is it like this? Like, what is really going on here? Because there must be an internal reason. It's never just an external reason with the Lord, especially, when someone so dear to the Lord as Haridas Thakur, Rupa Goswami, is not allowed to enter the temple, then, like there has to be some internal reason, some confidential reason. So there is. The internal reason is actually very sweet and very, very exalted. And that reason is that Jagannath Puri is Vipralamba Dham. Vipralamba means separation. So it's the abode of separation. And we're going to hear about this more in the next couple of lectures when we get into Lord Chaitanya's relationship with Jagannath and Lord Chaitanya's ecstasies in Puri. Because when Lord Chaitanya was living in Jagannath Puri, he was relishing this highest ecstasy of Srimati Radharani's separation from Krishna, her love and separation. And so, we're going to hear later about how Lord Chaitanya was literally like smashing his head against the wall due to intense desperation to see Krishna and intense pain at not being able to. So Lord Chaitanya was experiencing this feeling of separation, that I want to see Krishna, but I can't see Krishna. And I want to be with Krishna, but I can't be with Krishna. So when we go to Jagannath Puri, we also get a tiny little taste of this. I want to see Krishna. I want to see Lord Jagannath, but I can't. I want to be with Lord Jagannath, but I can't. So this is actually the mood of Puri. This is the Lord's pastime in Puri that he has. And this is actually the highest, most ecstatic experience of love of God is experienced in separation. And Krishna is aware of this. Like Krishna knows this. And that's why he puts those devotees who are most dear to him in this situation, like Haridas Thakur and Rupa and Sanatana Goswami and Srimati Radharani and the gopis of Vrindavan. So in Brihat Bhagavatamrita, Krishna, he knows because he describes, Sanatana Goswami narrates how Krishna is describing what happens to the gopis of Vrindavan while they're separated from him. So Krishna says, although in the forest fire of separation, my beloved gopis are filled with pain, that pain is more glorious than the happiness of directly meeting me. It is indescribable and enchanting. It is an ocean of ecstatic love. Only those who are learned in tasting the mellows of divine love can understand it. So it was by leaving the gopis and denying them his darshan that Krishna actually showed more mercy to them. he showed more mercy to the residents of Vrindavan by leaving Vrindavan than he showed to the residents of Dwarka by living in Dwarka for so many years. And then, denying his devotees his direct association seems like a kind of cruelty, but actually the cruelty has a wonderful effect, that it softens the heart of the devotees, and it makes them humble, and it makes them cry for the Lord. Like the gopis were crying for the Lord the whole time, like Lord Chaitanya was crying for the Lord. And there's that song that we sing, Jagannatha Astakam, that that's the mood of it, right? That Aho dine nate nihita charano nishchitam idam. Did that translate? Aho, it is certain that Lord Jagannath bestows his lotus feet upon those who feel themselves humbled and helpless. So that's how it feels, I've been there before outside that gate of the Jagannath temple, feeling humbled and helpless. Because there's nothing, you have no power to go in, no matter how great a devotee you are, no matter how, influential you are in your preaching, even if you're, a guru or a sannyasi or a GBC, you cannot get into the Jagannath temple. You're totally helpless. Doesn't matter how much money you have, how many disciples you have, how many temples you have, and you're just humbled and helpless. But it's also at the same time, it's glorious because it increases our hankering for the Lord, and it helps us to have this proper attitude of unconditional love for the Lord that we hear from Lord Chaitanya in the last verse of Shikshastika, where he says, Adarshana marma hata karotuva mat prananat tu sa evanapara. That adarshana literally means without darshan. It means I can't have his darshan. So Lord Chaitanya is saying, even if he makes me brokenhearted by not being present before me. So even if Lord Jagannath makes us brokenhearted or disappointed by not giving his darshan, even if I don't get the darshan, still mad prana na tas tusa eva napara. Still, he's always my worshipful Lord unconditionally. So when we go to Jagannath Puri, it will really make us want to cry out like that. And with this Jagannatha Swami Nayana Patagami Bhava Tume. That's the refrain of the Jagannatha-astakam, and it means exactly that. When, oh when, will Lord Jagannath be the object of my vision? So we all have that experience that when you can't have something that you want it more. So for those of us who are non-ethnic Indians, we can take advantage of the Lord's special mercy on us, that when we stand outside the gate feeling like untouchables, that let our desire to see the Lord increase. And when that desire increases to the point where we can't stand it anymore, then the Lord is going to appear to us in some other way, which may be even more sweet and even more personal. Like we see this in the case of Haridas Thakur, that Haridas Thakur was at first very distraught when he found out that Lord Chaitanya would base himself in Jagannath Puri, like we heard in the previous class. He went to him afterwards. Like everybody else was satisfied. Okay, this is very close. Mother Sachi's happy. Devotees are happy. Haridas Thakur went to Lord Chaitanya afterwards and said, everybody else is fine with this arrangement, but this is very hard for me because I can't go to Puri. I was born in a Muslim family. I have no place there. I can't go to the temple. I can't even go near the temple. Everyone's going to despise me there. I won't be welcomed by the locals. And how will I ever see you again? So Lord Chaitanya, he consoled him. He said, don't worry, I'll give you a place there. You're very dear to me, and you have no doubts you will never be bereft of my association in Puri. So later, when this big group of Bengali Vaishnavas went to Puri, they all went to meet Lord Chaitanya, and Lord Chaitanya received them and embraced them, one by one with great affection. And then I'm going to read, I'm sorry, it's getting a little late. I still want to read this from Chaitanya Charitamrita. This is Madhya Lila. I'm starting chapter 11, text 161. So this is, it's that situation. So the devotees go to Puri, and Lord Chaitanya is greeting them all. And then, so I'm reading now. After thus offering respect to each and every devotee, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu became very jubilant. However, not seeing Haridas Thakur, he inquired, "Where is Haridas?" Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then saw in the distance that Haridas Thakur was lying down flat on the road offering obeisances. Haridas did not come to the Lord's meeting place, but remained fallen flat on the common road at a distance. All the devotees then went to Haridas Thakur, saying, "The Lord wants to meet you. Please come immediately." Haridas Thakur replied, "I cannot go near the temple because I am a low caste, abominable person. I have no authority to go there." Haridas Thakur then expressed his desire. "If I could just get a solitary place near the temple, I could stay there alone and pass my time. I do not wish the servants of Lord Jagannath to touch me. I would remain there in the garden alone. That is my desire." He thought that if they touch him, they'll become contaminated by touching him. When this message was relayed to Lord Chaitanya by the people, the Lord became very happy to hear it. At this time, Kashi Mishra, along with the superintendent of the temple, came and offered his respects unto the lotus feet of Lord Chaitanya. Upon seeing all the Vaishnavas together, Kashi Mishra and the superintendent became very happy. With great happiness, they met with the devotees in a befitting manner. Both submitted to Lord Chaitanya, "Please give us orders so that we can make proper arrangements to accommodate all the Vaishnavas." Accommodations have been arranged for all the Vaishnavas. Now let us distribute Mahaprasadam to all of them. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu immediately told Gopinath Acharya, "Please go with the Vaishnavas and accommodate them in whatever residences Kashi Mishra and the temple superintendent offer." Then the Lord told Kashi Mishra and the superintendent, "As for the remnants of food left by Jagannath, let them be delivered to Vaninath Roy's charge, for he can take care of all the Vaishnavas and distribute Mahaprasadam to them." So we're seeing how Lord Chaitanya is making arrangements for all the Vaishnavas. He's making sure that they're all going to get Jagannath Mahaprasadam every day. And then he says, he gives this order to Gopinath Acharya. He says, "Nearby my place in this garden of flowers is a single room that is very solitary. Please give that room to me, for I have a need for it. Indeed, I shall remember the lotus feet of the Lord sitting in that solitary place." So he's asking for this little room in the back garden behind his place, very near to him. He wants it for himself to meditate in. Kashi Mishra says, "Yes, Lord, everything belongs to you. You don't have to beg. By your own will, you can take whatever you like. My Lord, we are your two servants and are here to carry out your orders. By your mercy, please tell us whatever you want." Saying this, Kashi Mishra and the temple inspector took their leave, and Gopinath and Vaninath went with them. Gopinath was then shown all the residential places, and Vaninath was given large quantities of Mahaprasadam left by Lord Jagannath. Okay, I'm going to maybe skip here. Lord Chaitanya tells all the devotees, "You can go to your rooms. Everything is arranged. Go take bath in the sea and come back and take lunch." Okay. After this, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to meet Haridas Thakur and saw him engaged in chanting the Maha Mantra with ecstatic love. Haridas chanted, "Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare." As soon as Haridas Thakur saw Lord Chaitanya, he immediately fell down like a stick to offer him obeisances, and Lord Chaitanya raised him up and embraced him. Then both the Lord and his servant began to cry in ecstatic love. Indeed, the Lord was transformed by the qualities of his servant, and the servant was transformed by the qualities of his master. Haridas Thakur said, "Dear Lord, please do not touch me, for I am most fallen and untouchable and the lowest among men." The Lord said, "I wish to touch you just to become purified, for your purified activities do not exist in me." He's saying, "You're more pure than me, because your activities are so pure. I'm not even as pure as you." Lord Chaitanya exalted Haridas, saying, "At every moment you take your bath in all the holy places, and at every moment you perform great austerities, sacrifices, and charity. You are constantly studying the 4 Vedas, and you are better than any Brahmin or sannyasi." Lord Chaitanya then recited the following verse. "My dear Lord," so this is from Bhagavatam, "My dear Lord, one who always keeps your holy name on his tongue becomes greater than an initiated Brahmin. Although he may be born in a family of dog eaters, and therefore by material calculation may be the lowest among men, he is still glorious. This is the wonderful effect of chanting the holy name of the Lord. It is therefore concluded that one who chants the holy name of the Lord should be understood to have performed all kinds of austerities and great sacrifices mentioned in the Vedas. He has already taken his bath in all the holy places of pilgrimage. He has studied all the Vedas, and he is actually an Aryan. Saying this, Lord Chaitanya took Haridas Thakur within the flower garden, and there, in a very secluded place, he showed him his residence. So he took Haridas Thakur to that little room that he had asked for, and he told him, just remain here and chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. I shall come here every day to meet with you. So he couldn't go to see Lord Jagannatha in the temple, but the Lord, same Krishna, in the form of Lord Chaitanya, was going to come every single day and see him. Lord Chaitanya said, remain here peacefully and look at the chakra on the top of the temple and offer obeisances. As far as your prasadam is concerned, I shall arrange to have that sent here. So Srila Prabhupada says in the purport that seeing the chakra on the top of the temple dome is the same as, you get the same benefit as seeing Lord Jagannath in the temple. So in that way, we can take darshan still from outside. And yeah, I'm going to stop reading there. And the prasadam that, so Lord Chaitanya arranged for the devotees to get the Mahaprasadam of Lord Jagannath, but then what Haridas Thakur would get for his prasadam was the prasadam of Lord Jagannath that would be delivered to Lord Chaitanya for his lunch, and then Lord Chaitanya would eat that, and then the Maha prasadam from Lord Chaitanya's plate would go to Haridas Thakur. So we can see that actually, although Haridas Thakur wasn't allowed in the temple, he was more fortunate than the devotees who went to see Lord Jagannath and the devotees who got, the Mahaprasadam from Lord Jagannath in the temple, because he got the Lord would meet him every day and spend time with him privately in his room every day and give him his own personal remnants that was already Maha from Jagannath and then again Maha from Lord Chaitanya. So who is more fortunate? The one who goes in the temple or the one who doesn't go in the temple? And then, yeah, so how, and then we need to look at that. So how did Haridas Thakur become eligible to get this special mercy that wasn't given to anyone else? And that was because of his absorption in chanting the holy names and in distributing the holy names to others, because that's all Haridas Thakur did, was chant the holy names and give them to others. So the extent to which we are doing these things, to the extent to which we are getting really absorbed in our japa, really absorbed in kirtan, in harinam, in sankirtan, then to that extent, then we are going to get the mercy, this inconceivable mercy of Lord Chaitanya. And in fact, the very fact that we're deprived of Lord Jagannath's darshan in the temple may cause the Lord to shower us with an even better kind of darshan, as long as we remain humble and devoted like Haridas Thakur did. So, yeah, and we see that also, like at the end of Haridas Thakur's life, he's the only associate of Lord Chaitanya to have the good fortune of being able to leave his body with Lord Chaitanya sitting right in front of him, holding his hand and gazing affectionately into his eyes as he departs from this world. And so, while many so-called Hindus thought the body of Haridas Thakur was low-born and untouchable, but Lord Chaitanya embraced him and even picked up his dead body and danced in ecstasy with that body in his arms. So Lord Chaitanya came to distribute this highest ecstasy of pure love of God to the most fallen. And Krishna kept love of God under lock and key, but Lord Chaitanya broke open the treasure house, the storehouse, and distributed it freely. So for us, in one sense, Lord Jagannath in Puri is also under lock and key in the sense that we're locked out of the temple. But Srila Prabhupada, following in the mood of Lord Chaitanya, he broke open the Jagannath storehouse and he installed Jagannath deities all over the world. And so, people from anywhere can go and take the merciful darshan of Lord Jagannath. And in India, they have Ratha Yatra one day a year in Puri, but in the West, we have Ratha Yatra practically in every weekend in one city or another throughout the summer months. So who is more fortunate? So if you look at all of these reasons, we really have nothing to lament about not being able to go inside the temple at Jagannath Puri, and we really have a lot to be grateful for. So we should take full advantage and meditate on these things and our, exceptional good fortune, and that we may be even more fortunate, like Haridas Thakur, if we just follow in the footsteps of Haridas Thakur with his humble mood and with his absorption in what was most dear to the Lord's heart and what is most dear to him in this age, which is chanting the holy names and distributing it to the Sankirtan movement. Hare Krishna. So I'm sorry that I went a little bit late, but I hope that this class has been informative and helpful. And I hope you remember these points when we get to Jagannath Puri, because some of us will be feeling this. All right. Jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Jagannath Baladev Subhadra ki jai. Haridas Thakur ki jai. Gaur Premanandi. Hari Hari Bol. I'll see you tomorrow, same time, same place. Hare Krishna.